Dear soul, welcome to Zen Buddhism. If you've found your way here, perhaps your mind has been too loud lately, spinning in circles, grabbing onto memories, fears, regrets, unable to rest, unable to let go. Maybe you've been overthinking everything. What you said, what they said, what you should have done, what might happen next. It's exhausting, isn't it? To be trapped in your own head. To live life like you're constantly bracing for something. To carry a mind that refuses to sleep, even when your body begs for peace. But here, you don't have to figure anything out. You don't have to fix yourself. You don't have to be wise, calm, or even okay. You just have to pause. To be. To breathe. This space, this moment, was made for you to rest. So, if you're lying in bed, or sitting alone in a quiet room, know this: you are safe here. You are not alone. Right now, people all around the world are listening with you. Souls just like yours. Soft and tired and searching for peace. This isn't a lecture. It's not even a lesson. It's a gentle path inward. A return to the quiet place within you that's always been waiting. Let's begin slowly. If you can, lie down. Let your body soften into the bed, the floor, the couch. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let your eyes rest. Now, gently bring your attention to your breath. You don't have to control it. You don't even have to take deep breaths. Just notice that you're breathing and that you've made it to this moment. That's enough. You've already done enough. As you listen, you'll hear soft stories, quiet reflections, whispers from Zen, wisdom, not to teach you more, but to help you need less. Less worry, less pressure, less fear. Let the words flow through you like water. Let the silences between them be just as healing. You're not here to think more clearly. You're here to remember that you are not your thoughts. So welcome again. Let this be your permission to simply be, to listen, to rest, to fall gently back into your own being. Story: the swing beneath the maple tree. The house was quiet now. Not the kind of silence that comes from early mornings or lazy Sundays, but the kind that settles into the walls, that fills the spaces between furniture, the kind that lingers when a chapter has closed and no one is reading anymore. Helen stood in the hallway of the home she had lived in for almost 30 years. She wasn't here to pack. Not yet. Just to visit, just to remember. The air held a softness she couldn't quite place, something between dust and memory. She moved slowly, as if not to disturb the past. The photos were still on the walls, smiling faces at birthdays, school plays, vacations, years that now felt like minutes. The couch in the living room was the same one where they used to watch Saturday cartoons. She had cleaned apples and folded laundry on that couch. She had fallen asleep there more times than she could count. The kitchen counter still held faint rings from mugs left too long. She remembered which cup belonged to who. Her daughters always had a spoon. Her son's chipped near the handle. And the swing beneath the maple tree, it still moved when the wind was right. She paused. The stillness wasn't empty. It was full of echoes. She walked through the rooms slowly. Each space tugged at her. Her daughter's room was smaller than she remembered. It had always been small, but love had made it large. The fairy lights were gone, but she could still see them, blinking soft yellow into bedtime stories. She remembered brushing her daughter's hair, the smell of lavender shampoo, the way she would hum when nervous. Helen had missed one school play. Just one. A work emergency. She still remembered the look on her daughter's face that night. Smiling, but not with her eyes. It haunted her more than the good days comforted her. She moved to her son's room. Marks still lived on the door frame. Names and dates in faded pencil. She ran her finger over one. Age 6. That was the year he cried on the first day of school, and clung to her coat. She had hugged him tightly, told him to be brave, but walked away anyway. Later that night, he drew her a picture of the classroom. Stick figures holding hands. A red sun. She had kept it in a drawer. In the kitchen, she made tea. Not because she wanted it, but because her hands needed something to do. The kettle sang. She closed her eyes and listened. She sat by the window. The swing came into view, rocking slowly. The maple leaves overhead whispering stories only she could hear. She remembered pushing them, one after the other. Tiny sneakers brushing the earth. She used to hum. They used to laugh. But she also remembered the days when she was too tired. When she had said, "Not now." When her body hurt. When her mind was far away. And she wondered which moments had stayed with them. The laughter or the tiredness. Close your eyes. Let your breath come in gently. And go even softer. Picture a room where nothing is wrong, where nothing must be fixed. You are sitting there. There are memories in the air. Let them come. Let them go. You did not need to be perfect, only present. Let that be enough. For now. She opened the drawer beneath the phone. The one filled with bits of childhood, crayon drawings, cards with backward letters, old notes. One said, "You're the best cooker, and I love you even when you forget to smile." She laughed, then felt her throat tighten. There were so many days she had forgotten to smile. Days full of laundry, and bills, and work calls. She wondered if they had felt that distance, if they had ever doubted her love. She had tried. She had tried with everything she had, even when there was nothing left at the end of the day. She turned over another card. "Thank you for staying up when I was sick. You made the monsters go away." She closed her eyes, held the card against her chest. Maybe love had landed after all, even if not always visible, even if not always spoken. Outside, the wind moved again. The swing rocked back and forth, like someone invisible had just jumped off. She stepped outside. The air was cooler than she expected, but clean. She walked slowly toward the tree, shoes forgotten, toes pressing into familiar soil. She reached for the rope. The knot was loose in places, but still held firm. She sat, felt the wood beneath her, worn smooth by years. She let herself sway, just a little, not forward, not backward. Just here. Close your eyes. Take a slow breath. Think of one small gesture, a soft word, a warm meal, a quiet hug at the end of a hard day. That too was love. You did not have to say it perfectly. You did not have to plan it all. Sometimes love is in the ordinary, in the forgotten, in the repeated. You were there, and that matters. Let your breath come in. Let it go. Let the silence be kind. Helen leaned back, looked up. The branches framed the sky in gentle sways of green. She remembered sitting here with them, their legs never reaching the ground, their questions endless, their hearts wide open. And she remembered the questions she never answered well, the promises she had broken, the moments she hadn't noticed. But she also remembered the warm baths, the packed lunches, the steady presence. She had been there, again and again, and maybe that was love. Not the grand gesture, but the everyday return. Her daughter was now raising her own child. Her son had his own place in the city. They still called. They still laughed with her. They still came home for the holidays. She wasn't perfect, but she had stayed. She had tried. She whispered, not to the wind, but to herself. It was enough. The maple tree whispered back. The swing creaked gently, and Helen simply sat. river knows the way. The rain had just stopped when Daniel stepped out onto the porch. The old wooden planks creaked beneath his feet, softened by decades of sun and weather, but still reliable. Unlike his dwindling savings account, he stood there, wrapped in his wool cardigan, a warm mug in hand, staring at the fog rolling in from the distant pines. Beyond the hill, a slow river meandered, hidden from view but never far from his thoughts. Like time, always moving, whether you feared it or not. Daniel was 57. He had lived a practical life. Steady jobs, modest pleasures, a decent suburban home once filled with children's voices. Now it was just him and spreadsheets, graphs of future projections, articles about inflation, rising healthcare costs, and the dwindling hope of retiring with grace. He had come to this cabin, his brother's old place, for a short retreat. A week, maybe 2. Just time to think, or stop thinking, to breathe, or so he told his therapist, who gently encouraged him to go. Sometimes, she had said, you need to step outside your problems to see them clearly. But even here, in the supposed quiet of nature, Daniel's mind was a tangled web. How much more did he need to save? What if Social Security dried up? Would he be a burden to his kids? The questions buzzed in his head like the mosquitoes in the wet woods. That morning, as he stirred honey into his tea, a thought occurred to him. Or perhaps it was a memory. His grandmother's voice, soft and slow. The river knows the way. Daniel, stop trying to steer it with your fears. He didn't know why it surfaced now. She had said it to him when he was a child, fretting over getting into the right school. She'd been a quiet woman who tended her garden and always seemed to know what time it was without looking at the clock. The river. He hadn't been down to it since arriving. Close your eyes. Picture a river, not rushing but moving with purpose. A quiet current winding through forest and stone. It does not ask where it is going. It does not compare itself to other rivers. It moves, always, in trust. Now, take a breath. Let the inhale flow in like the river swelling after rain. Let the exhale roll out like the current finding its way. You do not need to force the direction. You are already being carried. That afternoon, Daniel followed a narrow trail through the woods behind the cabin. The soil was soft, the air damp and filled with the earthy scent of pine needles and wet bark. He walked slowly, not out of reverence, but because his knees had started to ache lately. Another reminder, he thought grimly. The body's decline and the rising cost of taking care of it. But then he heard it. The river. Its murmur grew louder as he turned a bend. And there it was. Wide and brown and glistening. It was not dramatic. Not picturesque in the way postcards are. But it was real. Alive. A slow, constant presence. He stood at the bank, letting the sound fill his ears. He didn't expect it to fix anything, but he sat down anyway, on a mossy rock, and just watched. Minutes passed. He realized his breath had slowed, not because he tried, but because his body, like the river, had its own rhythm beneath the static of his thoughts. He took off his shoes and dipped his feet into the cool water. It shocked him, then soothed him, and something shifted. Not much. Just a softening. That night, he dreamed of the river, not as it was, but as it had been in childhood. A place he and his brother built dams from sticks, tried to catch tadpoles, fell in and laughed. He woke up smiling, then worrying again. He reached for his phone to check the markets, but paused. Instead, he went back to the river. Day after day, he returned. Sometimes he brought a journal. Sometimes he just listened. His thoughts still came. About money, aging, the fear of being left behind. But they seemed less aggressive here, like clouds drifting rather than storms brewing. He began to notice things. How the dragonflies skimmed the surface without disturbing it. How a fallen branch eventually got carried downstream, no matter how tangled it had been. And slowly, Daniel began to suspect something. That maybe the mind, like the river, wasn't something to master, but something to meet. One morning, as he sat on a flat rock with the sun warming his shoulders, he whispered aloud, "I don't know what will happen, but I think I'm okay with that." The words surprised him, and yet they felt true. Sit or lie down. Let your body settle. Bring attention to your breath, just as it is. No control, no shaping. Now, imagine holding a small stone, a worry you've carried for years. Feel its weight. When you are ready, gently place that stone in the river. Watch it sink, not out of denial, but out of trust. Repeat silently, "This too, I can release. This too, I can let flow." The river does not need your fear, only your presence. The end of the second week came, and Daniel packed his things. He looked different, not younger, but softer. On the last morning, he sat on the porch again. The fog was back. rolling in like it always did. He still didn't have the answers. His savings hadn't magically grown. He still worried. Sometimes. But he felt something new, an undercurrent of peace, like the steady pull of the river below. Before leaving, he wrote a note in his journal. There is wisdom in uncertainty, like a river finding its path not through control, but through surrender. Maybe my work now isn't to fight for security, but to trust in the flow of life I've already stepped into. The river knows the way. And with that, he got into his car and drove home, not with certainty, but with serenity. And while Daniel learned to trust the river of life, elsewhere, in the hush of a hospital at night, another soul was learning to make peace with the body she feared was failing her. Story: The Room with Quiet Walls. There was a small freckle on her collarbone. It hadn't been there before. Or maybe it had. Maybe it had just darkened, or grown, or changed. Claire stood in the mirror of the old spa's bathroom, tilting her head. The lighting was dim and golden, meant to relax, but her breath was shallow. She touched the spot with 2 fingers. It didn't hurt. It didn't itch. But her mind raced. Melanoma. Metastasis. Too late. She didn't say the words aloud. She didn't need to. They curled up beneath her ribs anyway. The receptionist had smiled kindly when Claire walked in. No music played. No scented candles. Just warm silence. She had booked this wellness retreat 2 months ago. It was a gift to herself. A way to slow down. A chance to reconnect. At least that's what she told people. But truthfully, she had come to listen to every ache, every whisper, every symptom. She had been Googling again. Last night it was autoimmune diseases. The week before, rare nerve disorders. She had started reading medical journals meant for professionals, not patients. Her screen time report was 11 hours and 42 minutes. Most of it spent monitoring herself. She walked back to the lounge. The chairs were deep and soft. The walls were lined with faded tapestries. Somewhere down the hall, water trickled in a fountain no one could see. Claire sat. The robe they gave her was plush. Too plush. It made her feel smaller somehow. She clasped her hands. What if something is wrong and I'm missing it? What if this is the beginning of the end? What if I don't catch it in time? She folded one leg beneath her, tried to focus on her breath. But it fluttered. There was a time when she didn't think like this. She used to be careless with her body. Bike rides without helmets. Long days at the beach without sunscreen. Skipping checkups. eating cheese fries after yoga. Now she counted everything. Moles, steps, restroom visits. She checked her pulse in waiting rooms, carried iron supplements and herbal teas just in case. And yet she never felt safe. Meditative. When the body feels like a threat, close your eyes. Feel the air move in. You are not broken. You are not failing. Your breath is proof that something soft is still working without you needing to control it. Let go of the microscope, the calendar, the charts. Just be here with breath, with body, with enough. Let this moment be free of fixing. Claire blinked. Across the room was a potted plant, wide-leafed and drooping slightly. Not dead. Not thriving. Just being. She envied it. A young woman in linen pants appeared in the doorway and called her name. Claire stood too quickly, felt the pinch in her knee, noted it, stored it. She followed the woman down a long hallway. Each step echoed, wood on tile, soft on soft. They passed closed doors with handwritten signs. Stillness, rest, renewal. Her door said float. Inside, the room was dark. A saltwater tank glowed quietly. The woman explained how to lie back, how the water would hold her, how nothing was expected. Claire nodded. She stepped in. The water was warm, skin temperature, and thick. It smelled faintly of minerals and something old. The lights dimmed. She lay back, let herself float. At first, her shoulders refused. They clenched. Her mind whispered, "What is that pain in my hip? Was that bump on my scalp always there?" She tried to breathe normally. Failed. Tried again. Slowly. Something shifted. Her arms floated without effort. Her neck stopped fighting. The water cradled the parts of her she had only judged. Meditative. Floating with what is. Let your breath find its own rhythm. You don't have to manage it. Let your body be held. By the ground. By the water. By this moment. You have spent so long fearing it. Judging it. Fixing it. What if? Just for now. You thanked it. Thank your heart. Your tired knees. Your changing skin. Let the breath go. Let the fear go with it. You are still here. And that is everything. She didn't know how long she stayed in the water. But when she stood, the tension in her jaw was gone. The ache in her chest had softened. She dried off slowly, ran her fingers over the mark on her collarbone. It hadn't disappeared, but the panic had loosened. In the changing room, she sat in front of the mirror. Wet hair, but a face. No filters. No worry lighting. Just her. She remembered a photo of her mother at this age, smiling on a park bench. Lines around her eyes. A softness in her neck. She had thought she was beautiful. Why couldn't she think the same now? Why had aging become the enemy? When really, it was just the body continuing, faithfully, to carry her. She got dressed, walked back through the quiet halls, thanked the staff with a real smile. Outside, the sky was turning blue again. She stopped by a small mirror in the car, touched the freckle one more time, then let her hand drop. She didn't promise herself she'd never worry again. She didn't delete her health app or cancel her next checkup. But as she sat in the car, she whispered something she hadn't said in a long time. Thank you for still being with me. To her knees, to her heart, to her breath, to this body that had done nothing but try. And when the engine started, the worry didn't disappear, but it wasn't driving anymore. Story. The quiet between heartbeats. The fluorescent light hummed above her. Faint, persistent, and just slightly off in tone. Emma sat alone in the hospital waiting room, the only one there. Though the night staff moved quietly beyond the frosted glass doors, the walls were painted a pale blue, meant to be calming, though it only reminded her of cold hands and antiseptic smells. A clock ticked in rhythmic patience on the far wall, a second hand sweeping in quiet defiance of her racing thoughts. She had come in earlier that evening after a series of dizzy spells. They had run tests, blood work, and something called an echocardiogram. Now, she waited. It was 11:42 pa. She hadn't called anyone. Didn't want to scare her sister or wake up her son across the country. Instead, she sat wrapped in a too-thin blanket, her handbag beside her like a quiet companion. What if it was her heart? What if something inside her was breaking down and no one had caught it in time? The thought pulsed louder than the distant beeping of monitors. She had always been healthy. Organic groceries, morning yoga, vitamin D in the winter. But lately, everything felt unpredictable. Aches in the joints, sleeplessness, a creeping fear that her body was no longer obeying her. It wasn't just the test results. It was something deeper, an anxiety she couldn't name. Like the body she'd lived in for over 50 years had become unfamiliar. Like a house that suddenly shifted on its foundation. She pressed her palms together in her lap, trying to ground herself. And then, something strange happened. The lights flickered. When they came back, the room felt different. Not darker, not brighter, but quieter. Time itself seemed to exhale. The distant hallway noises dulled. The ticking of the clock seemed further away. She turned to the window. It faced a small inner courtyard. A garden, long neglected. Shrubs overgrown. A cracked fountain. But the moonlight touched it gently, like an old memory being remembered. Drawn by something she couldn't name, Emma stood and walked slowly to the window, and then further, down the hallway, through a side door that led to the courtyard. Find stillness. Feel your body where it touches the earth or the chair beneath you. Let yourself be held. Now bring awareness to your breath. Not to change it, only to notice. There is breath beneath your fear. There is stillness beneath your symptoms. Inhale. Feel the chest rise. Exhale. Allow it to fall. Just this moment. Just this breath. You do not need to predict the future to be safe here. You are already in the arms of the now. The courtyard was damp, cool with stone benches and rusted lanterns that hadn't been lit in years. Emma sat on the edge of the dry fountain, arms wrapped around her knees. Above her, the stars had pushed past the clouds. She remembered, suddenly, how her mother used to sit at the foot of her childhood bed and hum softly when Emma was sick. Not to fix the illness, but to soothe the frightened child inside. Now she was the frightened child and the one doing the comforting. She closed her eyes. Her breath was shaky, but she followed it anyway. In and out, in and out. A cool breeze rustled the overgrown plants, and a thought came. Maybe it's not about living forever. Maybe it's about learning how to truly live while we can. She felt the truth of it in her chest. Not a grand revelation, but a quiet settling. The test results didn't come until morning. A nurse found her asleep in the courtyard and gently woke her. All normal, the woman said with a kind smile. Your heart is strong. Emma nodded. Relief came. But it wasn't the flood she expected. More like a soft wave washing the edges of her fear. Because the shift had already begun. In the days that followed, she still felt the tremors of worry, the aches in her knees, the reminders that this body was aging. But something had changed. She began walking every morning, not for exercise, But for presence, she started listening more carefully, not just to others, but to the silence between words, the pause between heartbeats. She began writing again, little fragments of truth, poems that no one would read, but that helped her meet herself. And every now and then, when anxiety whispered its familiar tune, she would close her eyes and return to the courtyard. Not the physical one, but the one now planted within her. Close your eyes. Place one hand over your heart and one on your belly. Feel the rise and fall, the pulse of life moving through you. Now imagine your body like a garden, every wrinkle a winding path, every breath a breeze through ancient trees. Nothing in nature stays the same. The flower bloom, fades, and returns again. The river bends. The mountain settles. The leaf lets go. You too are part of this dance. Repeat gently. Becoming. I release control. I welcome presence. This moment is enough. Months passed. Emma never forgot that night in the hospital. Not because it was frightening, but because it marked the beginning of her true healing. Not from illness, but from the illusion of permanence. She still went for checkups, still took care of her body. But she no longer saw it as a machine to preserve at all costs. She saw it as a companion, imperfect, aging, and precious. And sometimes, on quiet nights, she would sit on her porch, press her palms together, and whisper, "Thank you for carrying me this far." There was a rusted sign that creaked in the wind. It said, "Rest View Motel," though a few of the letters had long since faded. The roadside building had 12 rooms, all of them quiet, all of them holding stories that no one asked to hear. James parked his car under the leaning pine tree and sat for a long time before stepping out. The gravel crunched beneath his shoes. It was late afternoon, but the sun had already dipped behind the hills. The air carried that kind of stillness that only comes in places time forgot. He checked in with a woman who looked like she had been waiting her whole life for nothing in particular. She gave him room number 6. The key was real, metal, cold in his hand. Inside, the room smelled of dust and lemon cleaner. There was a floral bedspread and a chipped lamp. On the table sat a small radio that didn't work. But James didn't turn it on. He just sat. He had come here for a reason, though he couldn't quite say what it was. At 53, James felt like his life was a drawer he had opened too late, full of things he didn't use, notes he never sent, plans left unfinished. He had never gone to college. He was going to. He had the grades, the invitation, but he chose work. chose the family auto shop, chose what was needed. Then there was Marlene. His marriage had lasted almost 7 years. He loved her, but not in the way she needed. They wanted different lives. He wanted quiet. She wanted music. And there was the loan. That one mistake. One friend. One big idea. All the savings. Gone. Each one of these lived in him like rooms. He carried them wherever he went. But today, he had come here, back to this stretch of road, near where he grew up, to sit in silence and maybe learn how to stop running. He lay on the bed with the window open. The wind brought the scent of dry leaves. Somewhere in the distance, a freight train passed. He closed his eyes. Let the sound roll through him. Close your eyes. Picture a small room inside your chest. It is old, but it is yours. There is a chair, a window, a soft light. Now, imagine placing an old regret on the table. Not to judge it, just to see it, just to let it rest. You do not need to fix what is gone. You only need to sit beside it. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. Let the dust settle. Let the room be quiet. Let yourself be home. James woke with a strange ache of not knowing how long he had slept. The light had shifted. It was that golden hour before evening. He sat up and looked around the room. It looked back at him. Kind. Still. He stepped outside. The wind tugged at his jacket. Across the road was a diner. He remembered it from years ago. It looked exactly the same. He walked over. The bell above the door chimed. Inside, there were 3 people. An old man eating soup. A couple sharing pie. The waitress smiled. She poured him coffee without asking. He sat in the booth near the window. The seat was worn but familiar. He remembered coming here as a teenager, after high school dances, late-night drives. The jukebox in the corner no longer worked, but he could still hear the songs in his mind. He drank slowly, looked out at the fading sky, and he thought of the version of himself who had sat here long ago. Young, hopeful, not yet afraid. That boy had not made mistakes. He had made choices. Some turned out well. Some didn't. But all of them had shaped the hands now holding this warm cup. He smiled at that. A small smile, but real. The waitress came back. Her name tag said Lila. Her voice was soft. You staying long? She asked. Just the night, James said. She nodded. Sometimes that's all we need. He paid his bill, left a tip, walked back across the road. The sign still creaked. The wind still moved through the pines. Inside his room, the shadows had grown long. He turned on the bedside lamp. The light was soft and yellow. He sat at the table and took out an old notebook. The cover was cracked. He hadn't written in years. But tonight, he wrote a few lines, not about regret, but about the wind, the pie, the way the light bent across the table. Sit quietly. Imagine a river. You are standing beside it. Now picture the moments you wish you could change. See them like small leaves floating on the surface. Do not grab them. Do not follow them. Just watch them pass. You are not your mistakes. You are the river. Always moving. Always becoming. Breathe in. Breathe out. There is peace in letting go. There is space to begin again. That night, James slept deeply. No dreams, just stillness. In the morning, he packed his things. The sun was bright. The motel was quiet. He turned in his key. The woman behind the counter nodded once, as if she understood something had shifted. Before leaving, he walked behind the building, found a path that led to a field. The grass swayed. The sky opened wide. He stood there for a long time. The past was still there, but it no longer pulled at him. He had missed some things. He had broken some things. But he was still here, still breathing. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. He turned toward his car. The road was open. The wind was gentle. He drove without rush, not to escape, but to live, somewhere far from that quiet road, in a city still lit after hours. Another soul sat in silence, not haunted by the past, but by the feeling of being left behind. Story. After the applause, the lights had been dimmed. The crowd was gone. Empty wine glasses still sat on scattered tables like silent witnesses to small talk and success. Nora stood near the back of the ballroom, holding her name badge loosely in one hand. The evening had been a celebration, the company's 20th anniversary. A gala, speeches, a video montage of milestones, and applause. So much applause. She had clapped too, smiled where appropriate, even laughed a little at old photos projected on the giant screen. But inside, a slow ache had taken root. She watched two younger colleagues exit the hall. Both had recently been promoted. One had given a short speech earlier. Polished, confident, the kind of energy that filled a room. Nora had been with the company for 16 years. She knew the systems better than anyone. had stayed through 2 restructures, trained dozens, but lately, her name came up less. No one had said she was falling behind, but no one had said she wasn't. She walked back through the event space slowly. Her heels clicked softly on the polished floor. At the side of the room was a service hallway, unmarked, dimly lit. She opened the door without thinking and stepped inside. The noise of the main hall softened. The hum of silence settled around her. The hallway led to a stairwell. She descended, found herself in a storage area. Tables stacked. Folded chairs lined up like quiet soldiers. And beyond that, a small office space, likely once used by event staff. The door was ajar. Nora stepped in. The room was mostly empty. A metal desk. A corkboard with a few rusted pins. A dusty lamp. The carpet held the scent of years. She sat down in the chair behind the desk. It let out a long sigh. There was no reason to be here. Nothing to do. But her body had moved before her thoughts. And now, she simply sat. Alone. In a forgotten room. Beneath the world of accolades and ambition. The hum in her mind continued. They were moving forward. She was not. She had once been the youngest on the team. Fresh ideas. Invitations to speak. Now her suggestions were nodded at politely. And forgotten. Had she missed something? Stayed too long? Or simply become invisible? She folded her hands. They rested on the desk like they had once held dreams. She didn't cry. Didn't even frown. But something inside her curled in. Close your eyes. Picture a quiet room. Empty. Dimly lit. There is nothing to prove here. Nothing to fix. Just stillness. Just you. Feel the silence wrap around your shoulders like a soft shawl. Notice your breath. The inhale that asks for space. The exhale that releases the weight of comparison. You are not behind. You are where you are. You are not less. You are only here. Let that be enough. Just for now. A clock ticked somewhere. Nora noticed the hum of the ventilation system. Her phone buzzed. She didn't look. Instead, she reached toward the drawer on the right side of the desk. It stuck a little, then gave. Inside was a notepad, half used. A pen with faded ink. She wrote her name, then sat and stared at it. The same name that had once been printed on conference agendas, now barely legible on a dusty desk pad. She thought of her first months at the company. The eagerness, the desire to be seen, to matter. And then she thought of the years between, the people she had helped, the system she had saved. The quiet stability she had offered when everything else was shifting. None of it had been loud, but it had mattered. She looked at her name again, underlined it. She was still here. Outside the room, someone walked by. Their voice faded quickly. The moment remained. Nora stood, walked to the corkboard. She pressed her palm flat against it. She imagined pinning a note. I was here. I gave what I could, and it was enough. She didn't write it, but she felt it. Sit quietly. Imagine yourself walking down a hallway. Each door you pass holds a version of you younger, eager, uncertain, bold. You stop at one, open it. Inside is a small light and your own reflection. You look at yourself with no need to compare. Just see. Just breathe. Let go of who you should be. Let go of who they are. Stay with who you are now. And whisper, I am still here. And I am still becoming. Eventually, Nora left the room, closed the door softly. She walked back up the stairs. The ballroom was nearly empty now. Just staff clearing tables. The glitter had dulled. She stepped outside. The air was cool. The city was quiet. In her chest, a space had opened. Not triumph, not sadness, just space. She walked slowly toward her car. She would return to work on Monday. The emails would still come. The meetings would still happen. But maybe, just maybe, she would no longer search the room for signs that she mattered. Maybe she would bring her coffee and her calm, her history and her quiet steadiness, and trust that those, too, had weight. She looked up at the night sky. One star blinked behind a thin veil of cloud. She whispered, still here, and let that be enough. Story. The sentence that stayed. It had been 2 days, but the sentence still echoed. I didn't expect that from you. Just that. No follow-up. No explanation. Said casually. Over coffee. In the middle of a conversation about weekend plans. Nina had laughed. Brushed it off. But inside her chest, something caught. Now it played on loop. Was it disappointment? Judgment? A joke? Something deeper? She had replayed the tone, the look on her friend's face, the tilt of her head, every pause, every breath. That one sentence had nested inside her. She had tried to forget it, told herself it didn't matter, but it kept resurfacing. During meetings, in traffic, while brushing her teeth. It came with a question. What did she mean? And behind that, a louder one. What if she was right? Nina sat at her usual table by the window. The cafe was quiet. Rain tapped lightly against the glass. Her laptop was open. Emails blinked. She stared past them. Her cappuccino had gone cold. The woman at the next table was reading. An older man stirred sugar into his tea. The barista moved with slow care. Everything was calm, except Nina's mind. The sentence returned again. I didn't expect that from you. What hadn't she expected? Her opinion, her choice of words, the way she had left the party early. Was it the shoes she wore? The silence she had let hang too long? Maybe it was nothing, or maybe it was everything. She tapped her fingers against the cup. Her chest tightened. The need to understand, to control the story. It pressed against her. Close your eyes. Picture the words that echo, the phrases that linger. Imagine placing them on a shelf, not to dismiss, but to set them down. Now bring your focus to the breath. Inhale slowly. Hold gently. Exhale softly. You are not the story others write. You are not the pause in their voice. You are here. Breathing. Enough. Let that be the anchor. Let that be the start. Nina closed her laptop, tucked it away. She stood and walked toward the door, then paused. Outside, the rain had softened. She turned instead toward the back of the cafe. A hallway led to a small gallery space. She had forgotten it was here. Quiet. Dim. Photographs lined the walls. Images of still lakes. Of people caught mid-thought. A child sleeping on a subway. Each moment held. Each moment passed. She walked slowly. Each step softened her chest. She stopped in front of a photo of an elderly woman, sitting alone on a bench, looking forward, not smiling, not sad. Just there. Nina stared at it. Something in her eased. Maybe the woman had said something once that someone misunderstood. Maybe she had let it go. Maybe that was strength. Nina sat on the bench near the far wall, folded her hands in her lap. She remembered a moment from childhood, when her teacher said she was too quiet. She had tried to talk more, to be louder, more likable. She remembered a boyfriend who once said she was distant. She had tried to be warmer, more available. So much of her life had been adjusting, tweaking, tilting herself to match what others expected. But she was tired. She didn't want to be a reflection anymore. She wanted to be a presence. That sentence, whatever it meant, didn't define her. It could stay unexplained. It could dissolve on its own. She took a slow breath. Close your eyes. Imagine yourself sitting still in a room with no mirrors, no voices, only breath, only heartbeat. Feel the shape of who you are, without commentary, without apology. Inhale gently. Exhale slowly. This is who you are, without needing to be corrected, without seeking approval. Let the breath hold you. Let the silence name you. You are already enough. When Nina stepped out of the cafe, the sky had cleared. The sidewalk glistened. She walked slowly, not checking her phone, not rehearsing anything. She didn't need to follow up, didn't need to know what was meant. The comment would fade, and if it didn't, it would simply exist, like wind, passing through. She passed a child blowing bubbles. One floated up, caught the light, then vanished. She smiled, not at the world, not for anyone else, just for herself. Story: the station between trains. The station had once been loud, not in a chaotic way, but full. Announcements, footsteps, suitcases rolling across tile floors, laughter echoing from one corner to another. Now it was mostly quiet. Only 2 tracks remained in use. The cafe had closed last year, and the newsstand sold more candy than papers. Theo sat on the same bench he always did, back against the wall, near the vending machines, just outside the main flow of people. Not that there were many people. He sipped lukewarm coffee from a paper cup, stared past the windows toward the rails. Nothing was moving. He didn't mind the waiting. What made him restless was the silence that came with it. He checked his phone. No new messages. No missed calls. Just the quiet blinking of a screen that stayed empty. He thought of Mara and Jun, of the friends who used to call, used to invite, used to share too much over drinks and long walks. Lately, it had felt like he was on the edge of everything, watching their lives move on. Vacations, new jobs, inside jokes he wasn't part of anymore. He had tried to reach out, small messages, little nudges. Some answered, most didn't. And so he sat here. He wasn't waiting for a train. He just came here sometimes, to feel the shape of time, to remind himself he still existed, even if no one else was noticing. Close your eyes. Imagine a station, empty, except for you. The air holds the memory of movement, but now it is still. There is no arrival, no departure. Just now, let yourself be in that pause. Let yourself rest in the space between. You are not forgotten. You are simply here, waiting, not lost. Just waiting. And that, too, is a kind of presence. Theo watched a pigeon hop near the edge of the platform. It pecked at something invisible, then flew off. His thoughts returned, always circling. Maybe he had said the wrong things. Maybe he had stayed too quiet when people needed him. He remembered Mara's birthday. He had meant to call, even wrote out a message, then hesitated, deleted it. It felt strange reaching out only to feel the echo. He looked down at his hands. They had held so many shared coffees, passed so many napkins during tears. Had he disappeared? Or had everyone just kept moving? And if they were still there, were they waiting on him to say something first? A woman sat down at the far end of the bench. Not too close, but close enough to share the same space. She wore a long coat, gloves that didn't match. Her bag rested between them. She pulled out a book, opened to the middle, and began to read. He glanced over, then away. They didn't speak, but somehow the bench felt warmer. Close your eyes. Picture yourself sitting, not moving, not rushing. Feel the air around you. Hear the small sounds. A page turning, the hum of a heater, your own breath. You do not have to say anything. You do not have to be seen to exist. You are already here, already whole. Let the silence hold you. Let the stillness remind you. You are not alone, even when no one speaks your name. Theo reached for his coffee again, took a sip, still lukewarm. The woman beside him flipped another page. He let his shoulders soften. The ache hadn't vanished, but it didn't press as hard. Maybe connection wasn't always loud, wasn't always confirmed. Sometimes it was simply shared space, a quiet presence, the knowledge that someone else chose the same bench. After a while, she stood up, slid the book into her bag. Before leaving, she turned to him. Just for a second, her eyes met his. She gave a small nod, and then she walked away. Theo exhaled. Long, steady. He didn't check his phone again. Didn't need to. He watched the rails. A train would come eventually. Or it wouldn't. But in that moment, he felt seen. Not entirely connected, but not invisible. Not healed, but held. And that was enough. Story. Before the light comes. The hotel room was quiet, but her thoughts were not. Mira sat at the edge of the bed, hands resting on her knees. Shoulders stiff, jaw locked. It was 4:47. The presentation started at 9, but it had already begun in her head. Every mistake she might make, every awkward pause, every blank stare from the boardroom, every judgment she imagined behind someone's polite smile. The future had arrived early, dragging its shadows with it. She stood up suddenly, as if movement might shake it off. Paced, touched the blinds, didn't open them. The world outside was still dark, and she wasn't ready to see it yet. She had gone over the slides 12 times. The content was solid. The ideas were hers. She had something to say. But confidence didn't live in facts. It lived in something softer, something that had gone quiet inside her. The room was expensive, clean, faceless, like someone had removed all personality on purpose. There was a tray with green apples she wouldn't touch. A neat chair by the window she hadn't sat in. A folded robe that whispered luxury and loneliness. She opened her laptop, closed it again, walked to the mirror, looked away quickly. Her stomach clenched. Her throat felt like it was waiting to close. What if her voice shook? What if someone interrupted her? What if they saw right through her, saw that behind the calm exterior? She was holding herself together with threads. She took a deep breath. It caught halfway. Meditative. The breath before thought. Sit with what is. Don't fix it. Don't push it away. Place your hand on your belly. Feel the breath come in and go. Let it be small. Let it be enough. There is no moment to conquer, only one to return to. Inhale slowly. Exhale gently. You are already here. She sat back down on the bed, hand still lightly on her abdomen. The breath was real, even if nothing else felt like it was. Time passed in the way it does when waiting slow and weightless. She thought of calling someone, but the names in her phone felt far away. What could they say? Anyway, what she needed couldn't come from outside. It was strange how deep the spiral went. This wasn't the first time she had felt this fear. It had shown up at high school recitals, university debates, team meetings, and always the same question underneath. What if I'm not enough? And they finally see it. At 6:10, she made tea. Not to drink it, just to hear the water boil. To hold a cup, she stood by the window, this time opening the curtain slightly. The sky was beginning to tint not light yet, but less black. That time of morning that doesn't demand anything. She noticed how tight her shoulders were. Rolled them slowly. They cracked. That simple sound, honest and small, grounded her more than any affirmation ever had. She sat in the chair by the window. Let her legs relax. Let her hands rest in her lap. She whispered aloud, "It's just a meeting. It's not my whole life. I've survived worse." She didn't believe the words fully, but they softened something. She imagined herself walking into the room, not performing, not proving, just being there. Present. What if she stuttered? What if she forgot a line? Then what? The earth would still spin. The sun would still rise. She wasn't the center of their world, and maybe that was the gift. Meditative. The fear and the floor. Bring your awareness to your feet. Feel where they touch the ground. Imagine the earth beneath you, even through floors and carpets and concrete. It holds you. Now, take one breath. Don't make it perfect. Inhale. Feel the edge of fear. Exhale. Let it shift. You do not have to be fearless, only present. At 7. Mira got dressed. Not like a warrior. Not like a champion. Just like a person showing up for her day. She brushed her hair slowly. A loose strand fell across her cheek. She didn't rush to fix it. She packed her bag, double-checked nothing, then stopped herself. Let it be. By the time she stepped into the elevator at 8:15, her heart was still beating fast. But it wasn't out of control. She wasn't pretending she wasn't afraid. She was just moving anyway. Each floor passed like a slow breath. The bell chimed. The doors opened. She didn't smile too much. Didn't rehearse lines in her head. She walked down the hall. Her steps were steady. When she reached the meeting room, she paused. Not to compose herself. Not to pray for perfection, just to feel the moment. It was quiet inside, and so was she. The pause in the parking lot. The engine was off, but her mind was still running. Elena sat in the parked car, hands still resting on the steering wheel, even though she'd arrived 10 minutes ago. The dashboard glowed dimly. It was 9:47 p.m. She had meant to be home by 8. The groceries on the passenger seat were sweating in their plastic bags. The house lights were on. She could see them from here. Her son's room lit up in blue from the screen. Her husband probably finishing dishes she promised she'd take care of. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. Then again. Then stopped. She didn't reach for it. Not yet. She leaned her head back against the seat, let her jaw unclench. She hadn't even noticed how tightly she was holding her body. It had been a day. But that wasn't special. Every day had been a day. Deadlines piling, meetings overlapping, messages from school about missed forms, voicemails from her mother, group chats she hadn't replied to in 2 weeks, a calendar packed so full there wasn't even white space, and beneath all of it, a quiet pressure to hold everything up, to keep everyone happy, to not drop a single ball. Because if she slowed down, what would fall? She exhaled. It trembled a little on the way out. Then silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, humming kind that settles in at the end of a long sprint. The car smelled like coffee, crayons, and the faint citrus of old hand sanitizer. Her son had spilled juice in the back seat last week. She still hadn't cleaned it. She stared at her hands. There was a dry patch on her knuckle, a small cut on her thumb. Tiny, ordinary signs that she was always doing something. But when was the last time she just was? She opened the window a crack. Cool air drifted in. Meditative. Just for now. Close your eyes. Let the air move in. Let it move out. Don't fix anything. You don't have to be the answer. Not in this breath. Not now. Feel your body where it is. In the chair. On the ground. In this life. You are here. That is enough. Let this breath be a landing. Elena blinked slowly. The world outside was quiet. A neighbor's porch light flickered. A dog barked, then stopped. Inside her own home, life was happening without her for a moment. And strangely, that didn't feel like failure. It felt like space. She thought of tomorrow's to-do list. She would need to finish that report before noon. Pick up a birthday gift. Schedule the dentist. Figure out dinner. Call her mom. But just for now. She didn't move. She let the car be her cocoon. A small pause between demands. Her son had asked her something that morning. She couldn't even remember what. She'd answered with half an ear. Eyes on email. 1 foot out the door. Was that what motherhood had become? Showing up everywhere. And nowhere, fully. She closed her eyes. Not to sleep, but to soften. She imagined what would happen if she dropped one thing. Just one. Maybe they'd eat cereal for dinner. Maybe her co-worker would be annoyed. Maybe her mother would leave another message. But maybe she would have enough space to laugh again. To mean it. To hear her son's question. To feel her own breath. Meditative. The soft no. Take another breath. In and gently out. Now ask, what can I leave behind? Just for tonight. Not forever. Just now. Name one thing you do not have to carry. One expectation you can set down. You are still whole. Still good. Let the next breath come. Without effort. Without perfection. Elena opened her eyes. The grocery bag had tipped sideways. A tomato rolled out and rested against the center console. She laughed. Quietly. And it didn't feel like breaking. It felt like breathing. She turned her phone face down, then picked up the grocery bag, gathered her things, got out of the car. Her body still ached. The day was still full. The inbox would still be waiting. But she wasn't dragging the whole world with her anymore. She was just walking toward her front door, one step at a time, hands full of small things, but not too full. This, she thought, was enough. Story. The gallery of everyone else. The room was white, softly lit, soundless, somewhere between a dream and a memory. Thomas didn't remember how he got here, only that the door had opened easily, and he had stepped in. Before him stood a long, curved wall. Each frame glowed gently. No labels. No names. Just images. He stepped closer. The first frame held a polished photo. A man's sharp suit. Perfect posture. Shaking hands in a boardroom. Laughter frozen mid-frame. Applause implied. That's Mark. Thomas thought. From university. The one who made it. He turned. The next frame. A kitchen bathed in golden morning. Two children giggling around a flour-dusted counter. A woman humming. Brushing hair from her forehead. Emily. From that parenting group. She always looked so in control. He kept walking. Gallery after gallery. Life after life. Each one beautiful. Complete. No awkward angles. No missed buses. No unpaid bills. Just curated proof of other people's lives. The way he always imagined they lived them. And with every step, the quiet inside him deepened. Not peace, but the weight of comparison. He pressed his lips together. Why do they seem so full? Why does mine feel like a draft that never got finished? He reached for his phone. Out of habit. To scroll. To search. To escape. But there was no signal here. Only reflection. In the center of the room stood a bench. He sat. Lowered his shoulders. rubbed his hands slowly. A voice in his head, soft but relentless. You should have done more by now. They're building things. You're barely maintaining. You're not seen, not the way they are. He didn't argue. He simply believed it. Meditative. Step away from the frame. Breathe in. Let the story slow. You are not inside the frame. You are the one who sees. You don't need to compare. You don't need to catch up. Feel your breath land. Let your body settle. Nothing is missing right now. You are whole, even in stillness. Let that be true. Just for this moment, a single tear surprised him. Not because it came, but because it had waited so long. Thomas looked up. The gallery had changed. The lights dimmed slightly, and a new corridor appeared to the right. Narrow, unadorned. He stood and followed. This wing was different. No glowing frames, no applause frozen in time. Just simpler things. A notebook left open on a desk. A chipped coffee mug with a fingerprint smudge. A blurry photo of someone feeding ducks by a lake. The label beneath said only, Tuesday afternoon. Nobody saw. He stared at it. That looks like me. Further down, a voicemail recording. Just a laugh. Nothing else. He pressed play again. And again. That was my friend. From 5 years ago. We lost touch. Another frame. A pair of hands tying a child's shoelaces. The child's face not visible. The hands tired, but steady. He felt something shift. This was not someone else's gallery. This was his. Meditative. What was yours? Close your eyes. Breathe in the moments you forgot. The unnoticed ones. The real ones. Not trophies, but touches. Not applause, but presence. Let go of needing it to be extraordinary. Let it be yours. Breathe into your chest. Soft. Enough. You don't have to be more. You already are. Thomas stood in the middle of the room now. A quiet spread through him. Not because the questions had vanished, but because they didn't need answers anymore. He walked back toward the first wing, past the sharp suits, the morning kitchens, the curated triumphs. They were still beautiful, still polished, but they no longer pulled at him. He didn't need to fit into someone else's light. His own was dim but steady. He turned toward the door. It opened as easily as it had before. He stepped out. The air outside was cool. He didn't feel changed, but he didn't feel less. And that, somehow, was everything. So now, you've walked through many stories, some quiet, some tender, some very much like your own. You've met people carrying heavy thoughts, worries about the future, regrets from the past, questions that echo late at night. And yet, somewhere along the way, each of them paused, breathed, listened, and found not certainty, but a softer place to stand. Maybe you felt that too. Not all at once. Maybe just a moment here or there, like a hand loosening its grip, or a voice inside saying, "It's okay. You don't have to hold everything." Overthinking is not a flaw. It is the mind's way of trying to stay safe, to prepare, to protect. But peace isn't found by solving everything. It's found by sitting gently beside what is, with breath, with presence, with quiet acceptance that you, too, are allowed to rest. As this time together comes to an end, take one final breath. Feel your body where it is. Feel the ground holding you. Feel the stillness within the noise. You don't need to be fixed. You don't need to be perfect. You are here. And in this simple here-ness, there is already peace. Thank you for listening. May your thoughts soften. May your breath guide you home. And may you always remember, you are enough.